a fierce snowstorm and a solitary mechanic. Adrian thought it was just another ordinary day at work, but he had no idea he was about to encounter a horrifying accident. That night would mark the beginning of an event that would change his life forever. Stay tuned and witness this gripping story unfold. Adrian was a 30-year-old mechanic living in a small town. He was skilled at fixing just about anything and had moved there a few years ago. Living alone, he had used his last savings to open a small workshop, where he handled all kinds of repairs for the townsfolk. Adrian was a well-liked and trusted figure in the community. During the winter season, the town attracted a lot of tourists, thanks to the nearby majestic mountain that was perfect for skiing. The ski resort and hotel chain built on the mountain had significantly boosted the town's appeal as a tourist destination, and the locals were happy about it. Adrian often received work calls from the mountain hotels, especially in winter. The most luxurious of these hotels, the Mirror Spa Hotel, was a new investment by a major company and had just opened this year. Whenever there was an issue, the hotel staff would immediately reach out to Adrian. Winter had returned and the town was bustling once again. However, this time there was a severe weather warning about a rain and snowstorm that could last 2 days. This news ruined the ski plans of many tourists and most of them left. The locals, on the other hand, were used to such conditions and had prepared for the storm. That day, Adrian received a call from the Mirror Spa Hotel and went there. Wanting to take precautions before the storm hit, the hotel management gave Adrian a list of tasks. He reinforced some areas and installed metal panels over the windows for protection. By then, the rain had already started. The snow on the ground melted into the soil, making the outdoors dangerously slippery. After finishing the last tasks on his list, Adrian quickly wrote up his invoice and left it at the hotel lobby. He wanted to get back to town before the storm worsened. Otherwise, returning would become impossible. As he carefully navigated the treacherous mountain road, he noticed a luxury car ahead, heading toward the mountain. The vehicle was entirely unsuited for such a road and suddenly lost control, its tires slipping on the wet surface. It sped backward down the slope and came to a violent stop after crashing into a large tree. Adrian immediately pulled over, jumped out of his car and ran toward the wreck. In the driver's seat was an unconscious woman. The airbags had deployed and she lay motionless, slumped against the seat. Adrian tried to open the driver's door, but it was jammed. The rain was pouring harder and time was running out. He managed to open the rear door and quickly inspected the seat mechanism. Realizing the seat could recline fully, he activated the mechanism and reclined the seat. Keeping her neck and torso as stable as possible, he carefully pulled her out of the car. Rain lashed against his face, but his focus remained unshaken as he handled her with utmost care. Adrian carried the woman in his arms, ensuring her neck stayed supported, and gently placed her on the back seat of his car. When he checked his phone, he discovered that the battery was completely dead. Frustrated, he slammed his fist on the steering wheel and muttered, "Damn phone." Regaining his composure, he started the car and sped toward the town. During the grueling drive, Adrian silently thanked the tire chains for giving him traction on the slippery road. Once he reached the paved road, he accelerated, driving carefully but with urgency. As he approached the hospital, he whispered a quiet prayer, hoping the woman would survive and determined to get her the help she needed as quickly as possible. When Adrian arrived at the hospital, he jumped out of his car and sprinted toward the emergency entrance. "There's a woman in my car who was in an accident. I need help immediately. Stretcher medical staff," he shouted, his voice filled with panic. His urgency sent a ripple of alarm through the hallway. Within seconds, medical personnel sprang into action. As Adrian opened the car door, he felt his heart pounding like a drum. The woman was still unconscious, pale and unmoving. The medics carefully transferred her onto a stretcher and rushed her inside. Adrian followed closely, his breath shallow as he trailed the team into the emergency room. The doors closed behind them as the doctors began their examination. A nurse turned to Adrian and said in a calm yet firm tone, "We'll keep you informed. Please wait here." As he waited in the corridor, Adrian's mind raced with worry about whether the woman would survive. The muffled sounds of medical equipment and the doctor's swift commands from behind the doors heightened his anxiety. His thoughts began to wander. Who was she? Considering the luxury car and the direction she had come from, he suspected she was heading to the Mirror Hotel. But he couldn't be sure. Adrian pulled out his phone, only to see the dark, lifeless screen. It was still out of battery. He thought about borrowing a charger from the front desk. Just as he stood to go, all the lights in the hospital suddenly went out. The corridor was plunged into darkness, and a chorus of startled cries and panicked voices erupted around him. Hospital staff rushed in every direction, trying to maintain order. Adrian stopped a security guard running by. "What's happening?" he asked, his voice tense. "The storm knocked out the power," the guard replied hurriedly. "They tried to start the generator but it failed. The hospital's completely in the dark now." Adrian took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Even amid the chaos, he knew he had to stay calm. He saw nurses struggling to assist patients using only the light from their phones. Turning to the guard, Adrian said with firm resolve, "Take me to the generator room." Adrian's adrenaline was surging as the chaos in the hospital escalated. The storm and the power outage had made everything far more difficult. The security guard hesitated but, seeing the determination on Adrian's face, nodded and said, "Follow me." They ran through the dark hallways toward the generator room. As soon as Adrian opened the door, he headed straight for the generator. "This is an old model," he muttered, kneeling down. "Let's hope they've got spare parts." He grabbed the nearby toolbox and quickly pulled out the tools he needed. While inspecting the generator, he noticed a mess of tangled wires and the faint smell of something burnt. "Looks like a problem with the motor assembly, but I can fix it," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. The security guard held his flashlight steady on the generator. "How long will it take?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Without pausing his inspection, Adrian replied, "Half an hour. Maybe less." Internally he added, "If they have the right parts." He got to work immediately, opening the motor casing. It didn't take long to find the problem: a burnt cable and a short-circuited component. Fortunately, the generator room had some spare parts. With steady hands and the precision of a watchmaker, Adrian began the repairs, determined to restore power as quickly as possible. Adrian carefully placed the replacement cable into position. The security guard silently held the flashlight, but the worry etched on his face was impossible to miss. As Adrian tightened the final connection inside the motor, sweat dripped down his forehead. He knew every second counted, lives were at stake in the darkened hospital. "One last check," Adrian said as he inspected the cables and circuits again. After making a few minor adjustments, he closed the generator's cover. "All right, let's fire it up." The security guard pressed the start button. For a few tense seconds, the generator let out a sputtering noise before roaring to life at full capacity. The room was suddenly bathed in light. Adrian and the guard both exhaled deeply in relief. "The hospital's got power again," the guard said into his radio. Adrian stayed for a moment longer, monitoring the generator to ensure it was running smoothly. Satisfied, he packed up his tools and nodded, ready to move on. Adrian returned to the emergency room's waiting area, still anxious about the woman's condition. He approached a nurse and asked, "How is she?" The nurse offered a kind but brief response, "It's still too early to tell. The doctors are doing everything they can," before walking away. Feeling helpless, Adrian took a deep breath, his mind racing with thoughts about who the woman could be. He went to the reception desk and asked for a phone charger. The staff member pulled one from a small drawer and handed it to him. Adrian plugged in his phone at the nearest outlet, and as soon as it powered on, he called the Mirror Hotel. "Hello, this is Adrian, the repairman," he said hurriedly. "There was an accident on the mountain road today. There was a woman alone in the car and she's now at the hospital. She might be one of your guests, her family might be looking for her." The staff member on the line, noticing the urgency in Adrian's voice, asked for more details. Adrian quickly described what he remembered. "She's fair-skinned with long blonde hair. She was wearing a red scarf. The car was black, a luxury model. That's all I can recall." "Got it?" the staff member replied. "I'll check into this right away. Thank you." When the call ended, Adrian's unease remained. The woman's family might arrive soon, but the waiting only deepened his sense of helplessness. Just then, a doctor emerged from the emergency room. Adrian leapt to his feet. "How is she?" he asked, his chest tightening. "She's alive," the doctor said calmly. "But she suffered a severe concussion and some neck trauma. She's stable now though. You did well to get her here in time, it's a miracle she survived." Adrian's shoulders relaxed slightly in relief. "When can I see her?" he asked, but the doctor shook his head. "Not yet. We'll update her family with more details when they arrive," the doctor said before heading back inside. Adrian returned to his seat and let out a deep breath. As he watched the rain streak down the windows, the questions in his mind only grew. Who was she? Why had she been on that mountain road alone in such weather? Adrian tried to piece it together, but all he could do now was wait. Half an hour had passed, and Adrian was still sitting in the hospital waiting room, his eyes constantly darting toward the emergency room doors. Just then, a man in his 50s burst through the entrance, visibly anxious. He headed straight to the reception desk and asked, "I'm the father of the girl who was in the accident. How is she? Where is she?" The desperation in his voice made Adrian stand up instinctively. Hearing the man's questions, a doctor came out into the waiting area. Noticing his distress, the doctor spoke calmly, "Your daughter's condition is stable for now. We believe the critical danger has passed, but we'll need to keep her under observation a while longer. She suffered a concussion and some neck injuries." The doctor then turned to Adrian and added, "If it weren't for this gentleman, we might have lost her. He went to great lengths to get her here." At that moment, the security guard chimed in, confirming the doctor's words, and not just that, he fixed the generator too. He saved her life and helped everyone else in the hospital. The father's eyes welled with tears. He turned to Adrian, shaking his hand with a trembling grip. "I don't even know how to thank you. You've given us back the most precious part of our lives. I got your number from the hotel, I'll call you. I'm forever grateful," he said, his voice breaking. The doctor also shook Adrian's hand, saying, "We owe you for the generator. Truly thank you." Hearing these words, Adrian felt a wave of relief wash over him. He took a deep breath and offered a faint smile. "I'm just glad she's okay. That's all that matters," he replied before stepping outside. The rain was still falling as Adrian carefully got into his car and headed back toward town. When he finally reached home, exhaustion hit him like a wave. He stripped off his wet clothes, took a hot shower, and changed into something comfortable. The stress and adrenaline from the day slowly melted away, replaced by deep fatigue. Without even making it to his bed, Adrian fell asleep right where he was. The next morning, Adrian was sipping his coffee when his phone rang. Without checking the screen, he answered. The voice on the other end was kind yet firm. "Hello, Adrian. This is Matt Murray, Carrie's father. I wanted to thank you for saving her life. Carrie's condition is improving and she just woke up." Adrian's face lit up instantly. "That's wonderful news," he said. "I'm so glad to hear it. I hope she continues to feel better." After a brief pause, Matt continued, "Adrian, I'd like to meet you in person. Could I have your address?" Slightly hesitant, Adrian gave him directions. "Sure, I'll be here if you want to stop by," he said. About 15 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. When Adrian opened it, he was greeted by Matt Murray, dressed in a suit, his expression both serious and deeply emotional. He held an envelope in his hand. Matt extended his hand to Adrian, speaking earnestly. "Adrian, I don't know how to thank you. You saved my daughter's life twice. I told her not to drive in that storm, but she didn't listen. She was on her way to see me at the hotel." Adrian listened, surprised as Matt continued. "I'm the owner of the Mirror Hotel. Carrie was coming to see me. If it weren't for you..." Matt's voice faltered, his eyes glistening. "I just did what felt like the right thing to do," Adrian replied humbly. Matt pulled the envelope from his pocket and handed it to Adrian. "This is just a small token of our gratitude. We can never truly repay you, but please accept it." Adrian took the envelope, his expression a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Thank you, but I wasn't expecting anything. Knowing Carrie's okay is more than enough." Matt lightly patted Adrian on the shoulder. "This town is lucky to have someone like you," he said. "But we wanted to show our appreciation. If you ever need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me." Adrian nodded. "Thank you, Matt. This means a lot." As Matt left, Adrian placed the envelope on the table and paused for a moment. The events of the past few days would remain an unforgettable chapter in his life. Adrian slowly opened the envelope he had placed on the table. When he saw the check inside, his eyes widened in disbelief. The amount written on it was larger than anything he had ever seen. Stunned, he muttered to himself, "This can't be real." After sitting in silence, contemplating what to do, Adrian made up his mind and decided to call Matt. The phone rang and Matt's calm yet firm voice answered, "Yes, Adrian, I'm here." "Matt, I can't accept this," Adrian said, his voice tinged with hesitation. "It's too much. What I did for your daughter was simply the right thing to do. I didn't expect anything in return, and you know that." Matt listened without interruption. Then, in a gentle but resolute tone, he replied, "Adrian, please consider it a gesture of gratitude. This check represents the peace of mind you've given us. Carrie has a future because of you. Accepting it would bring me great joy. It could change your life or help you fulfill a dream." Adrian was silent for a moment, deeply moved by Matt's sincerity. "All right," he said at last. "If it means that much to you, I'll accept it. But I promise to use it meaningfully." Matt smiled on the other end of the line. I have no doubt you will. And remember, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call me. After hanging up, Adrian took a deep breath and picked up the check again. Visions of long-held dreams filled his mind. He had always wanted to buy a warm and peaceful home near his workshop. Maybe one day that home could even be where he started a family. Within a week, Adrian found and purchased the home he had dreamed of. It was within walking distance of his workshop and offered a beautiful view bathed in sunlight every morning. To Adrian, this house was more than just a structure, it was a symbol of hope. His dreams for the future now seemed brighter and more tangible than ever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss more like it. Your support means the world to us. Also, did this story remind you of someone? Share your thoughts in the comments below, we'd love to hear from you.